the button.
All right. Oh, it just came up on the phone as alive. There we go.
Yeah, it takes a little bit because everybody's notifications, if they've got notifications on, it takes a little bit before they get notifications. It's really slow.
That's rolling on the computer. Do you have the comments turned on?
Comments are turned on.
All right. I gotta see where I can see them now then.
Yeah, if you're on your laptop, you ought to, it's on the bottom usually, so.
Yeah, it doesn't show nothing yet. Wonder if I have to turn them on.
Should be there. Welcome to chat. Remember to guard your privacy. Bye.
Oh, there it is. It says on the side.
You get it? You got it all pulled up?
Yeah, let's see.
Sorry, getting some viewers run up in here.
There, I put something up there. There you go. Hi, all.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. There it is. So there is a little bit of a delay on the chat too.
I think there always is.
Interesting.
Well, everything's got to bounce back and forth, right?
Yep. Yeah, the good thing about this is I like doing this live is as soon as it gets done, it automatically uploads so everybody can just go watch it later. So
right.
It makes things so much nicer than to have to just record it, then upload it yourself.
Yeah, no chance to edit out the oopsies.
That's the only downside is not being able to edit everything out.
That's right. Some of the ones I watch regularly, it's nice. You get to see more real world, people like that.
Yeah, it's just now hitting 7 o'clock. So only streams I really watch is at Alex Flores or whatever his name is. Alejandro.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
YOLO, I guess is what they call him, used to call him.
I've been working a little bit with Alex SVT. He's out in California, just a real young guy, just started out. He's got like 100-some-thousand subscribers.
Oh, you're talking about, yeah, I know who you're talking about. He's the one, is he the one that just did the purple Whipple on his car? Silver?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's interesting how they get so many subscribers so quickly, just doing random drive arounds.
Low attention span videos if you look at them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I think that's what it is. But yeah, he was when he was assembling that engine, he was calling me about every other hour.
Really? Oh, I didn't know he built an engine by himself then? He did do that?
Well, no, he was with some shop, and it kind of bugged me a little in the video. He's like giving the shop all the credit. I'm like, well, then why was he calling me for
right?
Whatever. It's all good.
All right, hell, let's just go ahead and start here. I'll start out, let you just introduce yourself and the company, and then as people roll in, maybe we can get some questions going.
Well, I'm glad everyone's here. This is James at Cobra Engineering. This is my personal garage. This is my painter's car up top, my red Cobra right here. I've owned since 2004. I bought brand new, and kind of started the company with Fit and Shelby blowers on when they were cheap. I started making these adapter plates here to fit them on there, and grew from that. Got about 26 different part numbers now, and most of them deal with cooling. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight is intercooler systems and cooling, and how to better control your intake air temps.
Exactly. Very important. So how long have you actually been in business with Cobra Engineering? How long, or when did you start?
Well, I can tell you 10 years, or actually 11 now. It was 2010 when my first son was born. And it's a little embarrassing to admit, but I was in the hospital when he was born, and I bought the first M122 off of Shelby, off of probably a forum, probably SVT Performance or Mod Ford is one of the two.
Yeah, that was the hot thing back then.
I think I only paid like $280 for that first one. It was cheap.
So you started out with the plates first, and then you moved on. What did you move on to after that? Was that the intercooler?
The plates brought on the idle air control adapters, and the throttle body adapters I had to make it work. And then that brought in a whole series of those. And then the second real part ever made would be this one. And that's the intercooler adapter. So it was very early on that it arose the stock piece with the slip tubes that everybody knows was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is AJ, the company race car, Mofast, as some people know him, noticed that he was coming back from the quarter and there was a lot of pressure in his intercooler tank. So clearly the slip tubes pressure was getting by them, and we needed to figure out a better way to seal those intercooler tubes. He had a 3.4 Whipple at the time, and it made a lot of heat. So yes. I came up with this design, and I'm not to brag too much, but it took many hours of tinkering and thinking of how I was going to get this to pass through the intake and yet seal on both ends while still being fixed to the intercooler. Because the problem with the intercooler is it can move as much as 100 thou side to side and forward and back in the stock holes for mounting. So you could theoretically get everything crooked and sideways in there. Well, how is that going to get that to bolt to the intercooler with O-rings? Mm-hmm. And still sealed to the intake? And this is where I came up with this design in two pieces, where this goes to the intake and the separate piece goes through, and you have to tap the holes and bolt that to it, and then seal it together with a standard coupler.
Exactly. And you're not using the tubes either. The tubes are actually made onto the part itself now.
All these are pilots, and normally there'd be O-rings on here to go right into the champers on the front of the intercooler. Mm-hmm. And that bolts together, and that never moves from the intercooler. That's fixed.
And what's the size of the holes on that?
These are 5/8 all the way through, because these are 3/4 tubes. Mm-hmm. On this original design, the problem is everyone knows the plate, what I call the alternator plate pulley on the front that replaces the alternator. It's tight. And you can see by having to make the intake plate and this even squeezed together as far as I can, which probably it's going to be out a little bit, that plate was right there. I mean, there's 3/4 inch tubes. That was it. You're not fitting it anymore. And this served its purpose. I called it a race only. I made it to order. Was never a big seller. It's obviously a long process. And this is probably one of the original ones. I wrote all this code by hand back then. I didn't have software. So it's over 2,000 lines of code. Yeah, it was like
solid works there, huh?
Yeah, it was like a $500 part. It was paper and pencil designing.
That's back crazy.
Then. And it served its purpose for a lot of racers. But boy, as times moved on here, for the last 4 or 5 years, the need has really stepped up above and beyond.
Yes.
And
we went to the next level, basically. I mean, everybody started going to 1-inch lines now, which we can get into that too. Whether that's really beneficial on a stock core or not,
Well, I can tell you, inside the stock core, I got my garage calipers here. It's a whopping, that hole inside there is a whopping maybe 5/8. So really, this original part, that was maximum. Those 3/4 lines, you weren't really gaining much going bigger than that.
Yeah.
And people measured gains from that. I have some data, but it's all, the problem with it is most people, when they added that at the same time, they changed blowers, they changed engines, they changed setups. It was maybe one case of someone actually taking a setup down and putting that on just that.
Yeah.
and he noticed some substantial drop in IATs and stuff, but it was so one-time instance. I don't like to document that as anything scientific.
Yeah, you need multiple cases to be able to actually come to a conclusion.
Almost everybody who bought that part was changing setups, changing engines. It It was too many variables.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's still a functional part, and you weren't getting pressure drop, and you weren't getting pressure in the intercooler tank. I don't know if people are aware, but when it comes to cooling, anytime you have liquid, you want surface tension or no surface tension. So it's contact with the metal itself. And anytime you introduce any kind of atomization or air, the simple way to think about it is fizzy bubbles in a soda. You're not transferring heat. You're actually building an insulation layer. So by introducing boost into the intercooler system, you are effectively just killing all the heat transfer in your coolant. You now have, there's basically that insulation layer now.
Interesting. So
that really stepped up.
Something I wonder all the time is the line size. Say if you were running 3/4 from the back of the car all the way to the front, if you run an ice tank, obviously, and you swap that out to say 1-inch lines and you neck it down at the fitting itself on the intercooler adapter with the stock one, would you really see any gains by just doing that?
I think you would, in the sense that you would maintain the temperature in the line more so. In other words, you're going to equalize temperature, right? Exterior, outside temperature, ambient temperature to your ice water temperature. And that's going to generally want to equalize any chance it can. And having a smaller volume makes it easier to equalize running all the way to the front. By running a larger volume with a larger tube, you're going to be able to maintain that colder temperature, and it's not going to want to equalize. It's not going to equalize as easy as the ambient temperature. Yeah, being a larger volume. Same thing why you run a 5-gallon tank instead of a 1-gallon tank. That's the way to think about it. Why do you do that? You want to maintain your colder temperature longer. Well, that also effectively works in the lines running to the front. Now the return line, you could argue, what is that doing? Who cares, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like your fuel system. You run a bigger line on the inlet, and you run a smaller line going back to the tank. So
now flow numbers is where you really start getting into the science of voodoo, because there's diminishing returns, right? Everyone knows the old wives' tale: if you take the thermostat out, you're actually not going to cool the engine as well because you're going to overflow the radiator. Sure. Well, that comes into play. So are you ramping up your flow to a point to where you're getting more cold water to the intercooler? Or is it a matter of, does the intercooler need more flow? Nobody's really done this scientific data, and this has always been a pet peeve of mine where people talk flow numbers. I'm like, well, I could put a copper 1-inch pipe through my intake manifold. It's going to flow like crazy, but it's not going to transfer any heat. So there's always a number of diminishing return there. And this is what me and you have been talking about for a while, is trying to get some kind of test bench to see what that number is.
Exactly, because like we talked about last night, the factory intercooler only has so many paths it can actually take for water flow. So once are we at the point with 3/4-inch lines or 1-inch lines with the smaller pump where it's already exceeding the factory one, and we need a bigger and need more flow? Or can we actually gain more, cooler IETs, better flow with 1-inch and bigger pumps, Now,
this is probably a good segue, we'll call it, into the EMP line. So I've worked at EMP for over 24 years now. I was there when one of the first parts I ran was 7.3 liter diesel water pumps. And believe it or not, I've seen prints in fractions, not decimal places. That's how old some parts are in diesel engines. So the short, brief story is, the owner of EMP sponsored Brian Vickers in NASCAR. His dad owned Stewart Components. Part of the deal was he bought Stewart Components. So EMP took over Stewart Components, and they're known for making these. This is regular water pumps. They make a lot for Roush Yates. A lot of NASCAR engines you see today on the track, we make water pumps for. And a lot of people don't realize that's been around for a long time. But in that acquisition, we were working with Ford, mostly on the diesel end, and they made this intercooler pump everyone recognizes is 2125. WP29 is what it's known as internally. Was designed for the 0506 Ford GT. And I actually was privileged enough to run most of the housings when I worked on the factory floor that are in most of the Ford GTs. It's essentially the same as this. It's a brushless water pump. And because it's brushless, that's why it's 25 amps. It pulls a lot more amperage, but there's no brushes to wear out. So it's essentially service free.
How many volts can you put to that? Does it say?
Up to 17.
So up to 17 volts. So you could technically run a booster pump because I think they're 18 and a half.
Yeah.
So, but you could run it on a 16 volt system.
Absolutely. And we have. AJ's.
Is that what AJ's? Yeah.
Yeah, it was 16 volt at one time.
Gotcha.
I don't know if there's a big, you get, again, diminishing returns, right? But it will flow above and beyond any other pump. Maybe you could show up that chart. Lingenfeller did this test.
Yeah, let me get that up here real quick.
We wish we had all the rest of the pumps on there, but I suspect that legal took over and made them pull them down. But this thing was head and shoulders above every other pump they tested against it. And it is also, this pump is above and beyond what the Ford GT ran. So
okay.
It's not just that pump from 10 years ago or 15 years ago, old man here.
Right. Are you seeing this here?
Yeah, nope, we can see it.
Okay. So tell us what's going on here.
So basically, as the head pressure increases, the flow decreases, right?
Yep.
And the head pressure would be the intercooler in this case, which you're going to hit. But I could tell you that every other pump that was on the comparison was below that gray line there. It was, and I mean,
and that's including, from what I remember, that's including the Mazir pump that a lot of people think flow 55 gallons per minute.
Right. No.
And
not with any kind of head pressure on it anyway.
Exactly. And that was my question to you yesterday, was basically if this pump performed well with head pressure, which I don't think our intercooler systems will see more than 5 pounds. I don't see that happening. I mean, I guess it's possible, but if
you took a 1-inch line and necked it to 5/8 or something crazy, maybe. But
if you did pressure up like that, wouldn't you pop the internal seal possibly?
Possibly. I don't know what the seal's rated to. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was numbers posted on it. I did get the PDF from EMP directly. I'm going to post on the website to go along with this water pump, and it has a lot of technical data on it. It'll show a lot of that. And it's also, you can do speed control on it.
Variable speed.
Yeah, you could.
So therefore, if you drive on the street, yeah.
So what a lot of this is used for now is EMP Advanced Products. They make bus kits, they're called. They use them on garbage trucks, city buses. It's all about green, right? Controlling temperatures, oil temps, electric vehicles, you name it. We're working with Nikola now, and the same pumps can be used with Nikola for controlling venture. So that's where they use a lot of that interface. And quite frankly, this pump wouldn't exist without all that, because the cost, us guys making intercoolers ain't going to keep this going.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that's true.
So that's nice. And then as an offshoot of that, they do make in my opinion, the best mechanical pump on the market. And here's a stock Cobra pump. You see that stamped steel impeller that's known, as you see, this one's rusting and can fail. This is a stainless steel impeller, and that's never going to fail. And the bearing size is substantial.
Yeah, so you can't see that on the internet. Like I was telling you last night with pictures, you cannot see that the bearing housing is actually bigger. There you can actually tell. It's
quite a bit more stout.
And that pump also flows better, correct?
Yes. I mean, it's just a superior you can see the design as the impeller is much better. This is a very similar design impeller as in this pump. It's a little bit small. It's actually pretty small in there, believe it or not. But in a lot of discussion with the engineers at Stewart, if you drive your car on the street, it's not strictly a drag car, race car. You need a mechanical pump.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people playing with these electric pumps. That's really so you can flip a switch and save the horsepower while you're racing.
Yeah, or cool down in the staging lane, something.
It's not going to give the flow at idle or sitting at a red light or parade or even just cruising down the highway. You need a mechanical pump to do that.
But the mechanical pump would be fine. That mechanical pump would be fine if somebody was turning high RPM, right? You wouldn't have an issue. You wouldn't have an issue with that.
When we did run water in AJ's, I mean, 9,000, 9,200 RPM. So
wow, that's impressive. So, well, since you've got that intercooler there, I want to check that VMP out versus that stock one. We'll switch back to that real quick.
Yeah. Well, here's the best thing about the difference. So you can see I have them both mounted to one of my plates. These are scrap plates, actually. And this is a good example because what it shows is you can see the dead area on a stock intercooler. This is pretty similar to a plate you'll get on a Whipple or even a Eaton. As you can see, I had to open it up for the TVSs.
Yeah.
They're a little wider on the discharge. But you can see the dead area there, just flat where it's mounting. There's no, there's only 9 vanes as opposed to 13 across the VMP, and there's no dead area, none.
And they're the same size, correct? As a stock one, but there's more of them.
Oh,
the water bars.
Yeah, the bars itself, yes.
So that's what we figured out last night. Was that roughly 50%?
So on the bottom, you can see it's quite a bit wider.
Yep.
We did know what was about a little more than 3/4 inch shorter than a stock one, but I don't believe that's. If anything, that'll help with the turn in the intake because of the width. Yeah,
the VMP is shorter in height, I believe, what we figured, and the length was actually a little bit longer.
It's actually a little bit longer this way because when I made the new adapter, where did I put it now? VMP's new adapter, I manufactured those for them and designed it. I actually, the earlier version I made for this height, and it didn't fit, and I had to redesign it again. I went through 6 versions just to get that right, but it worked out nice. Now these have a 920 hole all the way through.
So they're not 5/8, they're actually, but it's going on the aftermarket intercooler as well, so it's got bigger holes.
Right, and then they're manufacturing this intercooler with a matching hole. So that pilot should go all the way down and should flow smoothly into the intercooler.
So you saved Justin in a way because he's not having to use those tubes again, because you showed me those tubes last night where he was necking them down, and now you're getting rid of that so you won't have that boost problem.
These tubes you're talking about here.
Yeah.
Basically, that's your stock manifold, and that's the VMP intercooler. I mean, that's not helping.
No, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier. If you've got things off-centered a little bit, it's just going to, leak as well. So
I notice his sits a little more tight because of the package is tighter. So you got to get it in there tighter.
Because it's just a little bit wider. So I got you. See what we're saying. Now, with it being shorter, I know somebody's going to ask, or I've seen the question, is the plenum volume, with that thing being shorter, do you think that's really going to make a difference?
I think the width, the calculations I did, the volume basically equates to the same. As far
Since
as
it's wider.
If you're just looking at straight displacement in the intake.
Yes.
Now, I had a lot of discussion with Justin just tonight, actually. I talked to him about this. And the nice thing about that is you get less head pressure on the discharge end of the intercooler, being further away from the bottom of the intake. And that can actually physically help the cooling as you're not restricting velocity through the intercooler itself.
So with it not, you're saying with it not being as close to the bottom of the intake, it's basically cooling it better. Is that
it's
what you're
allowing
saying?
air to flow through smoother, which allows cooling better. Yeah.
That's interesting. Did you ask him how he determined that?
Well, unfortunately, like we talk about, everything's theory right now because everyone loves
Yep.
the only thing that's easy to test is flow numbers.
Exactly. But flow numbers only give you 10% of the information, really. There's a lot that can go into that.
The engineer at Stewart Components yesterday showed me the test equipment they have to test the radiators they use for the bus kits. I wasn't even aware they had this. I mean, it's a pretty substantial scientific test equipment.
Really?
It's basically a whole room just for that.
Really?
And they set it up they test everything, the water temps, flow change, you name it. It's basically a enclosed wind tunnel that they can control the temperatures. So what I would love to do,
here we go.
If enough people were interested and we could crowdsource enough money to justify it, I could probably talk the engineer out of renting some time off of that thing.
Uh-oh.
And building a rig to put these intercoolers in there and get some hardcore scientific solid data. Instead of us sitting around on the internet talking back and forth and Facebooking each other like, this looks better than this.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But what were the conditions, Were they the same as the last one?
Even as an engineer, I can look at it and I can speculate. I can make a good educated guess.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can look at that intercooler and be like, oh, it's wider, got more water bars. It's better.
And then like the last talk you discussed the breakdown of the old intercoolers. That's a fact.
Yes. And people are looking for replacement cores as well.
Right.
And with you talking about the bench, something that I would like to see done is obviously get all these intercoolers and kind of do comparisons on them, because I just found out, which I guess has been there for a while, is Lightning Force LFP makes a intercooler that's a stock replacement with the stock size hose. I did not know that. And I'm curious to how well that actually performs. So a bench would be great
on that. No, I've, on the forums way back in the day, they look better and people put them in and they've actually noticed a drop in power for some reason.
Well, the only reason why you would drop power would be either airflow or it's not cooling, right?
The speculation at the time, now maybe they completely changed the design because
it's been a long time.
Modular Fords is 15 years ago, right? It's still there, don't get me wrong, but
yeah, Ed still run the show over there. He's got it.
Yeah. And I was hoping to get Ed in on some of this discussion. I didn't get a hold of him, but the theory was at the time was a change in velocity of the airflow through the intercooler. Essentially, if you think about it, the little veins going through, if it's not a high quality unit, they change volume. And if you change volume as you're trying to force air through, you either open it up or close it, you can have dramatic effects.
Yeah. Now, LFP's not making that, are they? Do they have somebody else making that for them? Like Griffin Radiators or something like that?
I have no idea who makes it for them. I
don't either. I
got a hold of them. I do deal with them now and then, usually with the throttle body end, but
be interesting.
No, PW. Oh shoot, I should know that for the VMP.
PWC.
It's something like that. It's a high end. It's a high quality one.
Yeah, they specialize in water stuff. So
a good friend of mine actually uses Bell, and he makes setups to put M122s on LS motors. And in fact, he runs the same machine I do to make parts. So.
And who is that? Because there's a couple of people making
engineering there.
Who?
Demuse Engineering, Tom Demuse.
Tom Demuse.
He uses the Magnuson tub and he makes a plate and it fits that on there. Well, now he's been buying Bell cores and making intercoolers for him and stuff. And but now my understanding of Bell was the one that was giving J2 Fab some flack about assembling their cores. So
yeah, quality control was an issue, I think, J2. I think kind of what we were discussing yesterday, I think a lot of people kind of jumped the gun on Justin on that when he just had issues elsewhere, out of his control.
I will flat out admit I job out some of the stuff I do. I don't like cutting steel in house anymore because the changeover takes too much time. And I've run into some issues. And whenever you job out, you're assuming that someone else has the same eye for quality you do. And
it's not always there.
It just doesn't always happen that way. And I mean, I don't like it when I don't badmouth anybody. If anyone knows the community and they know me, they know. You will not see me on the internet badmouthing other companies because everybody goes through that.
Exactly.
I work.
Everybody has issues. You got to work through them.
Suppliers in the nation for industrial stuff, and I have personally done thousands of sorts at work for bad parts. It happens. It's just gonna happen.
Yeah.
I think the difference in the company is how they deal with it after it's been made aware to them.
And he seems to be doing pretty good with that right now, it looks like.
He's doing the best he can to make it right. And he has beautiful parts. I've never seen anything that looked subpar. The machining looks nice.
Yeah, everything he has looks really good. So, and I believe even Alan runs some of his stuff and it works pretty well. So, Unreal SVT's on here saying thanks for the billet main caps that you made for the Tech Sid.
Oh, I actually didn't make those. That was I should remember. It used to be a different company, and then he bought it out. It was Proform, I believe.
So you just bought some of them, I guess. Is that what you done? Or
he used to make them, and then he had on his site some ridiculous price for one set. And I contacted him and said, well, if I make a dozen of these, what are you going to charge me? And now we got the price down to where we could actually resell them and use them, make them usable again.
Yeah.
And then I upgraded to side bolts because, in my opinion, that's if you're going to do the main caps, you don't use an M8 side bolt. So we went to an M10 by 125, a real fine pitch.
So I guess you just got to drill the side of the block to be able to fit that M10, or not?
Nope. Really? They clear the jack screws and they clear a 99 texted hole also all the way up. You don't have to do any modification at all. And it went, don't quote me on the numbers, but it went from like a 24 foot-pound torque on a side bolt to like a 54. So it's quite a bit more clamping force.
That's quite a bit. That's double, basically.
Yeah.
We also got somebody asking if you're going to make some LS parts, some LSA parts. Oh,
well, that's more Tom's area. My friend that I was telling about, we had an LSA up there and we were playing with it and stuff, but I'm going to let him venture into the LS. He seems to be an expert in that. He's got an S10 with a 6-liter in it and an M122 on there. It's running E85 this weekend at a car show. We're going to throw it on the dyno, and I think it's going to do all right.
All right, quick, before we move away too far from the intercooler stuff, I had one question about that EMP. We talked in the last one, you were saying something about the programming on those now, on the EMP. Are they the same, all the same now on the EMP? Yeah, the EMP pump.
Yeah, you'll see advertised now where it's, reprogrammed to be 25 amp. So the engineer reassured me several years ago. I don't even know how long ago. They just made them all that way now. So this basically this 2125, wherever you order it from, is going to be the same pump. They don't make different ones for different people. Nobody's special enough to call up Stewart Components and go, hey, you want to make a special pump for me? Unless
at the time there was a company that was saying this and they made it sound like as if they were reprogramming at their place.
No, that would clearly be a violation of the patent. This is actually a patented design. I do know that because I talked to the owner of the company several times about patenting stuff and how much it's not worth it. How much money has into something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you do a patent, I mean, they can pretty well still make it about the same as long as there's a little different, right? Is that the gist?
I want to say, don't quote me on the numbers, but it was like 80 to 120,000 just to get a patent on something. Like
Holy crap!
Because
just for a patent,
you got to pay attorneys to go through every previous patent and make sure there's nothing similar. And if there is, you have to buy that.
Holy crap.
That's where people, why don't you patent one of your parts? And I'm like, well, if somebody takes it, so be it. Because for one thing, I can manufacture that more cost effectively, being where I'm at and in the position I'm at. This is just a hobby. This is a hobby turned into a business.
Yeah, explain that, because you don't do this as your living means. You actually just do it.
No, I still work at EMP. They have very good insurance benefits, and I went through a divorce about 6 years ago, so I have to take care of me and my kids.
Yeah.
And reality is reality. I mean, I'm not in a position where I can walk away from there. So I essentially started making the plates for myself. But if you CNC something, if you can make one, you can make a million. So there was some market for it, and then there's more market. And quite frankly, I really enjoy designing this challenge. Looks very simple now, but sit down and try to figure out how to do this at that angle and fit it in that tight engine.
It's not easy.
This is like I said, this is 6C on my models to get it to where it works. And I think I could spend another 2 years on it, but eventually you gotta wave the white flag and make a part that works.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I really enjoy sitting at the computer and doing that and trying to come up with solutions. And the beautiful part is, because I manufacture every day, while I'm designing it, I'm also thinking, how do I make it? And,
yeah.
Everyone's familiar with the old adage, these damn engineers design these cars.
Yep.
And they put bolts where you can't reach them.
Yeah, or a starter underneath the intake for no apparent reason.
Oh, I've done a couple of those. God bless my friends for buying those pieces. What happens in the machining world is we suffer from the same thing. So a straight out of college kid at Caterpillar comes, hey, look at my design for a recirculation combustion system for a diesel engine. Wow, there's 13 planes on that thing and 35 bores that have to be held within 2 microns. How are we going to make that?
Yeah, exactly.
Here you go, make it.
Oh.
So we suffer for the same thing in the machining industry as mechanics suffer in the real world. So the nice thing with being the machinist and the designer is I get to design something that can actually be made. And by doing that, that's how I get the cost down to where it's functional.
And you're also changing your old design for the intercooler adapter too as well, right?
Right. So I've ditched this design completely now. I won't sell that anymore. Because what happens when I teamed up with VMP, we had these rubber intake pieces made. And by doing that, that eliminated that aluminum intake plate I had to manufacture, cut costs down. Now this goes here and I get that much more clearance. So now I only have 1 hose clamp, not 2.
Nice. Yeah.
I have a stainless steel plate I have cut to back it up so it bolts to the intake and seals. And then it seals to that. So now I'm basically gonna the same design, but just make it for the stock intercooler. Yeah. Now what's up for discussion? Am I going to take in stock intercooler cores and start opening up the holes similar to what J2 did? I don't have a lot of interest in doing that, as my time is limited, extra time, machining time, etc. What I would certainly do is publish the dimensions so that someone could just pay a local job shop to do it. I couldn't imagine they would charge more than $50, maybe $100.
I mean, you wouldn't think there's a whole lot there to it.
It's more the setup. Everything in machining world is setup. Whereas if I have to run one of these, or and one of whatever.
Yeah, you don't have multiple machines.
They're running 3 parts. Whereas if I set this up once and run for 8 hours, I could probably run 20 of them.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. That's why these places that do make parts have multiple machines, not just one, so you can continue to make product.
And that's my goal this year, is to get a 4th access newer machine.
You're getting a house. Is what you're going to do.
Driving a half-hour away to make these right now. That kills time. If I can get something closer to home and a fourth access where I can do multiple loads, again, we're gonna cut costs and we're gonna increase the number of parts. I have more ideas in my head that need to be made. Like the crossover delete that everybody I know, somebody's got to be asking about it by now because.
Oh, I'm getting ready to bring it up. So you do have somebody asking about the Gen 5 crusher intake tube that you made, the prototype of. I'm guessing he's talking about the 3D printed deal that you done. Is that what you're talking about, Unreal? Is the 3D printed setup that Joey had? That right there.
This one right here. So get a hold of me if you want one, but I am not manufacturing this. I have a few left. I had about 10 of them made. You can see the texture on them. They're nice pieces and all. I have an S&B filter for it, a coupler, all the clamps. That's made for a MAF.
There you go.
Honestly, the hardest part I ever drew in my life. There's so many things going on.
The simplest looking thing.
Crazy, but it's true. And manufacturing and everything, that's not my thing. I would, like if JLT said, hey, we want to make those, I would say, here's the design, go to town.
Have fun. There you go.
There's my gift to you. Think of me in the future. In other words, I'm not making more. I do have a few. If somebody out there is interested, email me. I'll unfortunately cost is still about $250 on it after I was done. So that's what I mean. The money wasn't there. I'm a cheap guy at heart. I don't make a lot. That's where a lot of this came from, right? I wouldn't make an adapter plate to fit a cheap blower on if I had money. I would have bought a blower.
Which a lot of people back then were actually doing that though. They were buying, what was it? Is it the M122? Is that what that was?
Yeah.
So a lot of people were actually doing that back then because they couldn't afford like the Whipple or the VMP at the time. I guess VMP was they even.
I don't remember where I'm at, but I think I've still only sold about 50 of those, but the setups, but in 10 years. But it's complicated. Like I'm just giving you the parts. There's a lot of wiring to do. There's a lot of relocation. My car is still relocated backwards. I don't know if you can see that intake in there, but
oh, it is, isn't it? Driver's side.
That is the number 2 TBS VMP ever made, 2.3 liter for a Shelby.
Interesting.
So I was working with Justin back then a little bit. He was doing my tuning actually back then. And so that one I actually milled the feet off and changed all the feet to match that plate. And I did a lot of extra work to it. And that's been on there since I couldn't even tell you when, maybe 13, I'm going to guess. And it's made as much as 772 rear wheel.
What fuel you running at that?
Oh, it was a high-end race
C16 or something?
Yeah, it was basically C16, yes.
Gotcha.
And 26 pounds of boost on a stock bottom end. I've never had that engine out of that car. And that recently did a 9-hour round trip to a car show down in Wisconsin Dells. Blows cold air, 20 some miles a gallon. Can't beat them. Can't beat them.
Well, somebody probably going to ask later, your adapter plate, would it work with the Gen 3 off of the Gen 3R GT500 blower? Would it work with that?
The problem with using the adapter plate on any other blower other than an Eaton is the pulley alignment. And over the years, I've had easily hundreds of people email me about Kenny Bells or Whipples. And back when they only made the big ones for the GT500s.
Mm-hmm.
But all these companies really have no interest in selling you a different snout, altering their blowers and letting them out on the market is what it comes out. Even if they did, you're still guessing at pulley alignment.
Yeah.
So like this one, that's a custom hub I had made a one-off. It has no shoulder on it, and I pressed and pulled it on and off until the pulley aligned with like a laser alignment tool,
mm-hmm.
and measured that depth and designed the hubs for that, and I manufactured the hubs. that extends the pulley.
Hmm.
And it's because Eaton uses that same diameter. It's a 780 diameter shaft for the M122, the 112, the 190, or the 90, and the TVS. They're all the same.
That's one good thing about the TVS, I guess. It's still, the rotors are still Eaton. So
yeah, they're all basically the same that way.
So before we move on here to my favorite thing, I'm going to share this screen real quick because I want to show everybody. Can you see that there?
Oh, yeah, that's, oops, bang everything around here.
So here's you can go to VMP's website to get the blower that he is showing you right there. $1,300, and I believe the adapter is somewhere around $399.
Yeah, 400 basically, which is still less than my original adapter. I was at, I got it down to 450 at the end there. I was trying to get a little more sale point on it.
Yeah, it's
more price than that. By working together with that rubber boot design and stuff, we managed to cut that manufacturing down quite a bit. That helps. And those are 1-inch stainless tubes pressed in there. So, and everything's stainless. You're not going to have to worry about anything rusting as far as non-aluminum pieces.
Does anybody have any feedback on the VMP core yet, or have you heard? I haven't heard anything.
I don't even think, who was that on Facebook that was testing them? Can't remember his name right now. I've lost it.
I have no idea. I know somebody tried them in a GT 500, but I ain't heard anybody in the Cobra.
Yeah.
Cobra stuff. But
if you're looking for a replacement, this is a no-brainer in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting ready to go to as well. I'm going to show this video real quick.
Like so, if the stock one is working, then well, I'm nobody to tell anybody to spend $1,300.
Yeah.
I mean, unless I'm not spending that. I'm not going to lie to you, but
you don't really need to spend $1,300 if the core's working. But if it's like this,
well, if your IT2s are,
or the IT2s are going crazy, which mine were, they were getting up upper 100s to 200-degree area.
Oh,
and
203 is the melted piston range. I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable with that. I know when I autocrossed at about 140, I had the timing come out so hard it fell on its face, and I pulled off in the pits. I was done.
Yeah, I actually had mine that was 8 degrees of timing is as low as I've seen it.
Yeah.
For some reason, this thing is not wanting to play. Why are you not playing?
Oh, did you have a data log of flow?
No, I actually had a video of the flow itself going back into the tank. For some reason.
That's when AJ told you about reversing it with vinegar. And
that's what I was bringing up. I was going to say.
I watched him do that at the track. It's phenomenal.
So basically, that video is of me, my intercooler. It was basically just barely even drizzling into the tank. And I hit up Alan Joyner, who he is talking about. And he said, put some vinegar in it and keep reversing the lines. Well, I did that, and you would not imagine the amount of iron deposits that came out of that thing and all the stuff that was in it. And the flow substantially increased. But I still don't think it's to where it needs to be. That's why I'm going to end up going to that. Probably the VMP more than likely, especially with the bracket. Well, so with that being said, we're going to move on to
dealerships on everything at VMP. So I maybe cut a little deal on them for people. I'm not sure what my margin is, but I'll do what I can. I'm all about helping out Cobra's getting down the track. That's for sure.
So here, let's see if I can get this pulled up. And I'll let you talk about it.
Okay.
This is probably one of my favorite things that you've made outside the head cooling mod, which I absolutely love. Is this right here.
Oh, it's my Achilles heel right now. I ain't gonna lie, I'm pretty proud of that part. That's one of those ones where you sit and tinker.
Yes, I have been looking at a cooling crossover delete for a long time, and I never liked any of them that would come out. And I've been waiting for somebody to make one. I seen this, and you posted it up on Facebook, I think, and I was like, that's it right there. Because you actually made standoffs rather than use AN fittings that go down in the head. I never did like that because it would never use the factory sensor. So that drove me absolute nuts. And then I had said something to you, which the blocks, I don't have one here, unfortunately. Um, yeah, I don't have.
Let me see what I got on.
Yeah, I don't have picture of the blocks on hand. This is probably one of my favorite things. You can use 12 AN lines. My car ran phenomenal.
Scrap ones, but I kind of have the gist of it here.
But yeah, if you want to just walk through this, right, this one I got in the front here, where it's showing on the inside of the housing.
Basically, the unfortunate part is I've had this ideas floating around in my head for 6-7 years, and I just never had the time to bring it to fruition. So what I did is I built in the bypass holes because it always bothered me that every one of these out there. In fact, I have I don't even remember the brand on mine, a Summit, whatever I ordered. And you have to drill the holes in a thermostat, drill the holes in a thermostat. Everyone's like, well, what size holes? What do we do? You know, nobody likes to modify anything themselves. They want to just know it works. So I built the holes in. Use any old Chevy boring thermostat in there. Now, here's a point that I should probably make a lot more clear when I sell these is you might want to run a colder thermostat than you think, because you are now remotely mounting that thermostat away from the engine a little further. So like I run a 180, but I live in a cool temp area, so I'm not too worried about it. Where a lot of people might want a 170 or 65 even.
Yeah, that's what I'm running, the 170 in mine. And going by the temp, I never get over much over 178, 180. So, right. I mean, it works great.
At the Dells at that car show, it was a crowd. I mean, it was basically 5 mile an hour parade everywhere you went. 85-degree day. God forbid, one time I seen 200 degrees, I turned the air off for a little bit, it dropped back down. You know, the old school way of cooling works. Now, what people need to realize, the reason Ford ran a bypass system in the thermostat on the bottom is very simple. The same reason as the oil cooler delete. It's all about emissions. Let's get that engine up the temp as fast as possible, and let's maintain that temp, including the oil. The quicker they can get it up closer to 200 degrees, the less emissions an engine makes. So what we're doing is we're getting rid of the bypass system, and we're saying, hey, the old school thermostat on top, one hose on the bottom, cools my engine. Okay, maybe I got to let it idle a little longer in the parking lot before I take off, but at that level, you know, you should be really doing that anyway, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So the nice thing I did on this is you can run your head cooling mod up front. And I do that on mine. I don't run it back through the heater core like a lot do. In fact, the new block I'm working on for the mineral gray Cobra over here, I'm probably going to eliminate and plug that hole in the back of the water pump altogether and just redirect up front. Both lines.
You're talking about the one on the block, right? The hole coming out.
Or, I probably shouldn't let that cat out of the bag. The real idea is to run 4 of these on the top of the head and plug the holes in the back of the head. Equalize, bring all the coolant lines up front, get everything off the head at the same, get a nice flow rate equally across the back and the front of the heads.
So you're wanting to run 2 on the back as well and run them all to a thermostat? So what you're trying to do?
Yep. Basically tee them into this. You won't need as much flow, so I'll just reuse these 2 ports. And eliminate everything that goes off the back of the head in the 38 millimeter plug. So that's standard 38 millimeter freeze plug on the back of the head to use for the cooling mod. And on top, oh, caught me. I can tell you real quick though, it's a 30. Oh, come on, 32. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Could you use those blocks? And I don't know if it's possible or not. Can you tie those two to the head, run one around the other side, the other head, loop it like that? Would that do it?
It's going to equalize across the head, but so the idea with the cooling mod, and to clear this up, the cooling mod existed long before me. I just made a different one.
You just made it better. Made it look better. Let's put it that way.
What I realized is everyone's originally, I think it was LFP made the one where they bastardized the factory ones and welded them up and brought it all together to one side for the heater core. I said, wow, we can make something that's better than that, right?
Yeah.
And a supply of OEM parts is running low nowadays too. So, but the idea with that is, as under force, the coolant's pooling at the back of the head, and there's no relief for that coolant. So if you just equalize across both heads, you're still pooling the hot coolant at the back of the head. It's not getting forward if you don't give it a place to go forward. That's the theory. And that was always the theory why the driver's side head had problems.
And the problems were always the valve seats, right? Is that what the problem was?
Originally, that's the stories I've read, was the tick originated with the seats. And we do know the seats are bad. If anyone who runs any high level race engine knows that you need to run a large, deep seat. I know in AJ's car, we run a special one. I remember Ron at Fox Lake, when he put them in, was like, I got to get some tooling for this.
Man, that's unfortunate too, because he ain't doing it no more.
Yeah, he sold out. I love Chris Starnes.
Yes.
I don't remember what the reasoning was why we use Ron over. I've used Chris before. And in fact, he did some 2-valve TFS heads for a friend of mine. And I'm redoing the engine now because we split the block. But that was a 1,140 horse through a 4R70 to the tire.
Wow. Here I was worried I was going to break up the R70.
Yeah, that's a 4.6 liter 2-valve. And he did the heads on that and the cam design, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. Yeah, I built the engine and I did a lot of stuff with the intake and that, but it wasn't for those heads, it wouldn't have put numbers down like that.
Man, it's crazy.
He's got a new shop going up now. I don't know if a lot of people seen that.
Chris Starnes?
He should be moved in. Chris Starnes? He should be all moved in by now.
Really?
All new shop, yeah.
Just expanding, or?
Yeah, I believe he partnered with somebody or something. I don't know the detail. I haven't talked to him in a while. He's hard to get a hold of, right? Busy. We all are.
Oh, yes. We're very busy.
So, yeah, so these, I guess back to the point, these parts have literally been my Achilles heel. This is a classic case of just because you can think of it doesn't mean you should make it. So I made the drawing. I figured out how to make fixturing to hold them, which when you're standing a hunk of metal up like this and cutting it, that's, people who machine know that's not easy. You see all the blend lines in there, working that out. It's basically, right now, to be frank, the manufacturing time I have is focused on the parts I already sell, and these have come along after. So I've been working with someone I do trust. He's got a 4th axis machine, and he's got me a decent quote where he's going to make these head fittings, and I'll just make the thermostat housing, which is a lot more basic.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can get, but I got about 2 pages of back orders on those.
Yeah. Do you have any ETAs or anything on how long it'd be for?
I'm not, because every time I predict, I've been shown to be wrong.
Yeah.
It should be done already. I'll admit it. It should be done already. I mean, I would have thought that if I had a money maker like this, I could have figured out a way, but it's not that easy sometimes, I guess. Plus, no excuses, but I have a day job. I have kids.
Oh yeah, it's not easy to do when you got all that going. I'm surprised you get what you get done. So
yeah, and I'm not getting rich off of this. So I'm open. I tell people I'm not Walmart. Sometimes people email like all 3 email addresses wanting to talk to someone, and nope, just me.
same guy.
I usually I get up at 5:30 in the morning for work, and I spend an hour on emails every morning, and I try to get back to everybody as best I can, and even messages. I'm sorry if I don't get to you right away. I honestly, I try. I mean, I do run a lot of different emails and try to spread it out so I can keep track of suppliers from customers and stuff like that. But
yeah. Do you want to ruffle some feathers with that thing you got sitting behind you, kind of lurking to your?
This one?
Is that an LS?
That right there is a 100-mile Godzilla out of 20. I thought it was a 2021, but it might be a 2020 Super Duty. And I picked that up. I was the mineral gray Cobra was originally going to get a big 4.6 with a 6R80 behind it, street drag setup. And then I saw this opportunity, and the 6R80 bolts right up to it. And so we're going to play with that and wedge that thing in there. But I'm going to make some parts first.
So you are going to make parts for it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to try to get ahead of the curve this time. Because when I got in a modular bandwagon, I was well behind the curve. I was late to the game, we'll say.
Yeah.
And I never jumped on the Coyotes. Quite frankly, I didn't care for them a lot. I thought it was a great street engine. But it's not really what I make. I make parts for racers. And
that's going to hurt some people's feelings. You just said that.
Well, it wasn't designed to be a race engine. They sure do well, but the only reason it is because Ford put their foot down and told all the manufacturers that the modular engine is dead. And money talks. Otherwise, people would still be running a modular engine, trust me. And we'd have aftermarket heads by now.
Right?
I know of
I'm surprised by that.
2 different companies I talked to that were working on aftermarket heads and were shut down on that.
They were shut down on it.
Well, basically Ford said, if you want our support, you don't work on that. We're on Coyote now. That's what we do.
I did not know they did that kind of stuff. I figured the aftermarket was the aftermarket. They just did what they needed to do, you know?
Well, they can, but if
without
you want
the support.
And now they made a whole class for Coyote, right? So
yeah,
it is what it is. They work. I'm not arguing with that. You can make.
I mean, they're fast. I mean, there's quite a few people running 7s with them.
Yeah, well, suppose an LS, but who cares?
Oh man, you're gonna hurt some people's feelings in here.
My problem is I hate push rods. I never liked push rod engines, and here I am sitting with a big new push rod.
Yeah, I'm on the same thing too, but it's I don't know, those chains always get me bothered whenever you hit the 2-step or trans brake, whatever.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, which I always thought about maybe running a drive-by-wire throttle bodies. AJ ever thought about doing something like that?
Well, I'd imagine the tuning. We haven't looked at it. No, it's not a terrible idea.
Yeah,
work. They flat out work, but
it would work. You could do a lot of things with it. So what all parts do you have coming for that thing?
What's that?
What all parts do you have coming for the?
My number one goal is the oil pump setup on it. If people want to go to my YouTube page, I reviewed pulling the pan and going through it. It's again made for fuel economy and emissions. It's got a variable vane design, and it's fixed as a rear sump setup, which is troublesome for not fitting in the new Edge. I think it should be fine, but retrofit, like older trucks or some of the older, I don't even know what vehicles used a front sump or clearance issues. And what I want to do is try to figure out a way to get the oil pump back up into the front cover and out of the pan, which is one of the really nice things about the modular, because it makes it a lot more versatile. Or we might have to break down and go to an external oil system, but But right now it's driven on a jack shaft off of a chain, similar to an extra timing chain right now.
Yeah, which is kind of different. I've seen a video where Brian Wolf tore one down. It's kind of not understanding why they did that. I don't know why they just didn't use the
Well, the
crankshaft.
variable vane, it removes a lot of load at driving and idle, low load situations. It takes a lot of load off the engine by not having to drive oil pressure. Because you got to remember, in our engines, we're basically running a spring regulator.
Mm-hmm.
It's just venting off that extra oil pressure when it's not needed, and it's wasteful. And
yeah, and it can, I guess, theoretically aerate.
At least they didn't have to do a cylinder reduction system, which is just awful.
Yeah.
I know people that make a lot of money fixing those.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's been a little slow too, because the other thing I want to do is pull the front cover. As people can see here, all these pulleys, there's a lot of brackets and a lot of ears coming off of here that is really cumbersome. And when you got a big old pickup truck, that's fine and dandy. But I think we could consolidate that a lot more with a cleaner front cover.
That stuff hangs way off that thing.
It does. It's not that big an engine for a big block. I have a 69 Lincoln with a 460 in it, and that looks smaller. And I bet I could fit that in there a lot easier.
Bet you can.
So that's my toss up. Throw it in the Lincoln or put it in the New Edge or in the Cobra.
Somebody's asking if you would share the program for, I guess, the 3D printer, what you got going on for the inlet tube.
Oh, the file? Yeah, I guess. I mean, why not?
I mean, could you put it on your website or something like that? Or
I could make a step file and shoot me an email.
There you go.
Just James at cobraengineering.com.net. All those, it'll get there. Well, the .net one is a sweeper. It picks up everything, and I mean everything.
Really?
Well, you got to have that. People mistype or fat finger letter. Got to be able to pick it up.
Yep. So, how we was talking earlier with the intercoolers, how you're wanting to do a test bench and everything like that. If people are interested, I'm guessing, would you want to put something maybe on your page to where they could maybe give some money or donate something to where they could be able to fund this?
Maybe I'll even create an email or something. I'll make a page. Let's get some feedback on that idea. Whether people are that interested in it, where we could maybe crowdsource some funding.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'd be willing to put some into it, but I'm not willing to go broke over it because it's not a money maker for me. But it is a pet peeve of mine that we don't have scientific data and we have a lot of speculation.
Is there any price point in your head of what it would cost to do something like that? Somebody's even saying Patreon.
Maybe Patreon. I've never played with Patreon, but I do know it's useful. Unfortunately, I was thinking in the range of 4,000 to 5,000 type.
That's what I was thinking. I figured 5 or less.
You're going to want to source at least the J2 Fab intercooler. I have these two already. And then you're going to want to source some other pumps to be fair and compare.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff adds up very quickly.
I guess the most popular pumps are really the EMP, the Davis Craig, and a lot of people use the GT500 pump as well.
Right.
So,
and then, I haven't even talked to the engineer about time. I mean, obviously they're going to probably cut me a deal being a work there and everything, but still they have stuff that needs to be done. And I'm definitely down the list on that, no matter what I do.
You're supposed to be number one, James. What's going on, man?
They got multi-million-dollar projects going,
So what kind of, if they're interested in doing this, what kind of information would you be able to give them?
Oh, everything. Heat transfer, flow, restrictive, how restrictive each one is. By flow, I meant the water flow. And what I really want, to me, I think a real simple test that someone could do on their own would be just heat transfer of the water. In other words, measure the temp of the water going in and the temp of the water coming out.
Yeah.
Pump. does this pump flow more? Is the water temp? Because in theoretically, if you need more flow to transfer more heat, the temperature of the output water should be higher, should be more ambient. Theoretically.
Could you do airflow as well or no?
That machine does, yes. It will show flow through. Because that's what they use it for, is testing those giant radiators, and they make fans. And they test all that kind of stuff. It's basically, it looks like a giant wind tunnel.
Yeah.
Well, I should say a small wind tunnel compared to wind tunnels.
Yeah. So you could possibly do something like that and get the data and basically put it all on a graph, and we could actually separate all the BS, is pretty well what you're saying.
Right. And I don't know. Maybe people don't want to know. I don't know, but I'm the kind of person where I don't care what the data says. I want to know what it is.
Exactly. I would like to know on the
bad
paper.
News, I still want to know what it is. You know?
Let's put a number with it. You know, it's kind of where I'm at too.
Hopefully, I don't step on in the process. We don't step on toes of people I get along with real well. But
yeah, I mean, that's not what we're really trying to do. It's more.
I gotta believe. Common sense says you get greater volume in an intercooler like this with greater surface area across it. There's got to be improvement. How much is that improvement?
Yeah, exactly.
And we put a number of, like the old question that is always asked: is it worth my time putting headers on the car? And most people say with our Cobras back in the day, no, not for a street car. You're going to gain 20 horse on a 600 horse car, or 500 back then.
Yeah.
It wasn't worth that much expense, time, energy for 20 horse. So same thing here, right? Say you have a street car and you want to optimize it, $1,300 thermostat, or intercooler. What's the number? And let them have a dollar ratio on that.
Exactly. And you can kind of separate, this one does cool better than the factory one, but this one cools better than that one, but the price is different or cheaper. Kind of lets you know which way you can go. So
no, the hardcore drag racer, they're just going to throw everything at it. Yes. Everything you can afford, they're just going to throw it at it.
Exactly.
That's not really what this test would be for, probably, realistically.
But most people are not drag racing the Cobras, to be honest. Most of the people I know with Cobras are street driving them, going to car shows, maybe going to autocross or something like that. That's really all the people I know. That's what they do. Most people I know drag racing them. It's just a drag car. So
with a drag strip, I snap an axle, I go back, I run 140 mile an hour, 11-second time, and 2 seconds, 60 foots, and
oh man,
goddamn, that was a lot of fun. I still beat the Viper. Who cares?
Hey, exactly, and that's what the problem is. That's the way we think as drag racers. Like, I don't care what I break as long as I beat the guy next to him. That's all it really mattered. Yeah, it blew up, but it is what it is.
First time I had this thing at 500 horse, I go to the track and I'm just playing around. Drove it there, right? That's my confidence. 2 hours away, and go up against a big tire old Firebird. And, oh, come on! And I beat it. And that feeling of you just can't beat that feeling. It's like, there's no way I should have. That thing was a drag race car. I pulled off a trailer.
It is addicting, very addicting. And when something like that happens and you beat it, it's just, you want more. You just want more. So it's a never-ending path.
Trying to think of anything else exciting here. I got all this parts here, but no, there's not a lot. Is there any other questions?
No, we ain't got no questions right now. Everybody's talking about Patreon and things like that. Unreal SVT said he's going to email you about that inlet.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for that. I'm sure he's going to buy one. He's working on a pretty good build right now over on Instagram. I've been following him.
Well, I'll have to check it out. Maybe I am, and I apologize. I get a lot of messages, a lot of emails, a lot of contacts, and I apologize if I don't remember someone or another.
Yeah.
And my other thing is, don't be afraid to bug me. I forget. Like, I have notes everywhere, and I'll still forget. Never feel bad about sending another email or, hey, did you forget about me?
I just message you on Facebook and then just wait until you reply. I think I sent one. He's like, "Oh, I ain't checked in a long time." And it's been probably a month or so. And I was like, whatever. No big deal.
Oh, it's all good. And I'll still take new ideas. I love ideas. I love looking to see if I could do stuff.
Hey, now you brought that up. I just, the alternator idea that I was talking to you about.
Which one? Oh, on
Remount the alternator in the AC area. Remember I sent you a picture of one and I didn't really, anyways, we'll get off that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any way we could do something like that possibly?
AJ made one and he doesn't even use it anymore. We don't use the inner belt at all anymore.
I guess he don't use the alternator? Does he not use
Nope.
alternator? Yeah, he's all.
Hopefully, it doesn't run into the Jake Conant problem. What was that? I think that was 2019. We got down to the finals, and it was hot lapping the car, and it wouldn't start. And the guy ended up winning. Though the guy was cool enough to let him charge it long enough to run it and race. He could have called him off.
Yeah, I remember that. You're talking about World Cup. Is that what you're talking about?
That's what it was.
World
and that's
Cup.
what happened. He wasn't running an alternator. He was just running a battery.
Dang. And I hear he's got his Cobra coming back. Unfortunately, not with the PD blower. Jake, you need to go back to the PD blower. It's just
no motor. Hoping, cross your fingers, maybe he helps us tune AJ's car a lot.
Oh, he does?
He's a key component in our team, we'll say. I'm on the phone with him when I'm down at those races as much as anyone. We're talking all the time about ideas.
Jake's a good dude. I've talked with him a couple of times. He's really nice.
The problem with AJ's cars, I booked the hotel and everything. He's hopefully going to be at Norwalk here in June 9th and 10th for NMRA.
So are you going to Norwalk as well or no?
What's that?
Are you going as well?
No, I won't be able to make that. I'm not sure. I was talking to you about maybe trying to make Streetcar take over in Indy.
Yes.
And then certainly it'll be at Bowling Green this year because I really missed that last year for NMRA finals.
We'll be there. We go there every year. We camp actually over at the campgrounds. So if you want to camp, bring your camper.
Yeah, I just got a camper. And
there you go.
Time last weekend.
Bring them down. Join the party.
Truck.
Do what?
It'd be a haul for the beater truck.
Yeah. Just hook it up to the Cobra and bring it down.
Yeah.
But anyways, guys, if you want to get a hold of his stuff or anything, you can just email him. And what's your email again?
Oh, just James at cobraengineering.com or .net, either one.
Or you can head over to his website as well if you want to order parts, cobraengineering.net. This is what I've got here. And you can go over and check all his parts out and products. James, really appreciate all the time. I know you're a busy guy. Huh?
I love talking about Cobras. Anybody want to get a hold of me and shoot a fad about building engines or any of this cooling?
Hey, I actually got an engine I'm getting ready to build, so you might be getting phone calls. I'm getting ready to do a 11.5-to-1 TechSid setup. So
if I had any guts whatsoever, I'd build engines for money, but the idea of someone else's engine failing just makes my heart sink.
Yeah, I'm not with that. The engine that's currently in my motor is 9.5-to-1, and it actually helped me go through it a long time ago. Or walk me through the timing the cams and everything, and it's actually got various pistons and all that.
He's a little aggressive with the advanced cam timing.
He's changed over the years. At first he was one way, now he's kind of a little bit more, the other way. So
depends what you're doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I can't remember what degree mine at, but yeah, I can't. It's pretty aggressive. I know that.
It's advanced, I would think.
Do what?
What cams you running?
235, 240 duration bullet cams.
Yeah, it's probably at least 4 or 6 degrees advanced, I would think.
I can't remember. I'm thinking I'm like 108 intake center line or something like that. I can't even remember what the exhaust is, to be honest.
Oh, well. Off subject.
Yeah, different subject. We'll bring that up another day. But anyways, I'm going to let you go, James. Appreciate your time. Anybody watching this live feed, just leave a comment down, or not watching the live feed, just leave a comment down in the comments below. And just get a hold of James if you have any questions. That's it, man. I appreciate it, James.
See ya.
We'll see you.